We'd just moved into the house when the storm came. It was one of those early summer squalls. Sudden, violent, too hot to make sense. Thunder that doesn't roll. It crashes like dropped concrete. It was a Thursday, and the air felt wrong. Too quiet, too charged, like something holding its breath. My daughter Lily said the house smelled like burnt hair. I said it was just the old wiring, but I remember looking at the outlets. They weren't scorched, they weren't even dusty. And later that night, the house started answering us. We weren't even supposed to live there. The house was a last-minute rental after the job moved me across the state. A faded yellow farmhouse halfway between nowhere and the next small town. Cheap, big enough for the three of us, and standing despite all odds. It looked like it had grown out of the earth rather than been built on it. And at night, with the sky flashing behind it and the trees bending like bones, it looked like a house that didn't want anyone inside. The first time it answered, we were arguing. Lily, 10 years old and newly in love with sarcasm, had refused to help unpack. My wife was too tired to fight. I was already 3 days behind work and one missed conference call away from a meltdown. I shouted, nothing awful, but sharp enough to echo. And that's what it did. It echoed, except not my voice. A full 5 seconds later, from inside the house, deep, like from inside the walls, came my words back to me. Then, stay in your room if you're gonna act like this. Same tone, same rhythm, but slower. Off, like someone repeating the phrase without knowing what it meant. Lily looked up from her cereal. Did you hear that? My wife stood frozen in the kitchen. I said it must have been the wind, but my own voice sounded unconvincing in my mouth. That night, the storm started. Proper thunder, not the, oh, what a pretty rain kind. This was a tantrum, a howling, hammering thing that seemed to press against the roof like it was trying to peel it away. At 2:12 a.m., I woke up because the house was talking again. A voice, low, dragging, distorted, was coming from the vents. I couldn't make out the words. They weren't in English. Or they were, but said backwards, garbled, wet. I opened the closet door and leaned in close to the vent. That's when I realized the air wasn't blowing out. It was pulling in. The storm raged for hours, but it wasn't the thunder that kept me awake. It was the voice in the vents, always just under hearing range, talking, repeating. At one point, I heard Lily whispering. I found her sitting at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't answer, just looked at me and said, "It said your name, Daddy, but it didn't say it right." The next morning, there were handprints on the bathroom mirror, too high to be Lily's, too wide to be mine. The towel rail was ripped clean off the wall. My wife thought maybe it was humidity warping the fittings. I wanted to believe her, but that evening I went down to the basement, for the first time, to check the fuse box. I found something carved into the concrete wall behind it. A sentence, crudely scratched in uneven block letters. "Don't say it back." That night, it rained sideways. The sky was white half the time. Wind screamed like it wanted inside. We turned the TV up to drown it out. Then came the knock. Front door, 3 short taps. My wife muted the TV. Lily sat up straight on the couch. We waited. It came again, louder. I opened the door. There was no one there. But across the porch, written in what looked like ash or soot, was a question. "Can I come in?" I erased it, shut the door, didn't speak. The lights flickered, the air smelled like ozone and soil. And from the vent in the living room, a voice whispered, "Yes." It sounded like my wife, except her lips didn't move. That night, I dreamed of water in the walls, of a shape behind them, pressing out, stretching drywall with thin hands. I woke up, gasping, went to the bathroom. The handprints were back. And now there was writing, finger traced into the condensation. "Say it." The next day, I sent Lily to stay with my sister. My wife didn't argue, but the house did. The power went out for 6 hours. My phone turned off and wouldn't reboot. The fireplace lit itself. And at 4:46 p.m. the TV turned on, just static, and the volume climbed to max without anyone touching it. Through the noise came a voice. "Say it." I didn't. I unplugged everything, closed every vent, sealed the basement door with screws and a chair. And for a while, it stopped. The storm broke. Sun came out. We breathed easier. We slept. And the house was quiet again until last night. I was brushing my teeth, and through the mirror I saw Lily standing behind me. Except she's still at my sister's, 2 hours away. The reflection smiled. Not Lily's smile. Wider, broken. It opened its mouth and whispered in my own voice, "Can I come in?" My dad died during a thunderstorm, massive heart attack. Alone in his recliner while the sky shook and branches came down in the backyard like bones. I wasn't there. I'd left his place 2 hours earlier, told him I'd visit again on Sunday. He died that Saturday night, during the storm, and I've hated rain ever since. 2 months after the funeral, I booked a weekend in his cabin, the one by Lake Paloma, where he used to take me fishing as a kid. It hadn't been touched since the night he died. My aunt held the key, said I could stay there if I wanted, maybe go through his stuff, maybe just be alone. I told her I just needed the air. That was half true. I drove up Friday morning. Storm clouds already forming in the distance. Late August, humidity thick as soup. The cabin looked the same. Cedar siding, green shutters, a porch swing that never held still. It was like stepping into a preserved photo. Inside, it smelled like dust and coffee. I walked past his chair and didn't look at it. The first odd thing happened that evening. I found his radio on the kitchen table. Old wood-paneled unit, cracked a speaker, never worked right. I turned it on. Instead of static, it played a recording. My voice. "You know, you always wanted the quiet. You finally got it." My breath caught. I turned it off immediately, checked my phone. Nothing saved, nothing playing, no Bluetooth, no apps open, just me. And my voice. That night, the storm hit. Lightning flashed hard enough to bleach the walls white every 5 seconds. The kind of storm that looks fake through windows. Around 11:30 p.m., I woke up because someone was knocking on the bedroom wall. Not the door, the wall. 3 times, even measured. I stood, walked to the spot, put my ear to it. Nothing. The power flickered. I turned on my flashlight and sat on the couch with a blanket and a beer. I don't know how long I sat there. Probably an hour. Maybe more, because eventually, the front door opened, just a few inches, enough to let in the rain. I stood. "Hello?" I called out. "Is someone there?" Nothing. I closed the door. locked it. But the lock felt warm, like someone had just touched it from the outside. The next morning, I noticed the clock above the sink had stopped at 11:33 p.m. That was the exact moment the knock happened. Later, I checked my phone photos. One was new, time-stamped at 11:33. It showed the kitchen, empty. But in the reflection on the oven door was someone sitting in my dad's recliner. Not clearly, just a shape. I told myself I was spiraling. That grief could do this. I'd read enough to know how the brain rewrites itself to survive. So I tried to lean into it, to say goodbye the way I never got to. I sat in the recliner, sipped coffee from his favorite mug, flipped through a photo album. I found one picture of us from the lake, my dad holding up a fish with a stupid grin. I was 10, and taped to the back of the photo was a scrap of paper. It said, "If we already had this talk, say nothing. Otherwise, why are you back again?" I didn't write that. I'd never seen that note. And the handwriting? It was mine. That night, the storm came back. Fiercer this time. Angrier. The kind of storm you feel before you hear. Around midnight, the radio turned on again. Same voice. Mine. "You said this already. You said this already. You said this." I pulled the cord, yanked it out of the wall. It kept playing for 10 seconds before dying. Then silence. Then the knock. Not at the wall, not at the door. At the window behind me, I didn't look. I sat frozen, waiting for it again. Nothing. Then, from somewhere deep in the cabin, a voice whispered, "This is the third time. You said you'd stop." The storm didn't stop. It held in place like it was waiting for something. Rain fell sideways. Lightning struck the same place on the lake twice, and the wind began to whisper through the vent ducts in slow, ragged syllables. They said, "Let him go." I left the next morning. Didn't clean, didn't pack properly. Left my toothbrush and my dad's mug on the bathroom counter. The storm faded the moment I reached the turnpike. By the time I made it back to the city, the sun was out and the clouds looked like cartoons. It's been almost a year. But this week, I got an email from my aunt. The subject line was blank. There was no text, just a photo, taken through the kitchen window of the cabin. It showed my dad's recliner, and someone sitting in it, head tilted toward the window, wearing the same jacket I wore that weekend. There was something wrong with Mrs. Winslow after the storm. She lived across the street from me. Tiny white house with the yellow shutters and the porch wind chimes that never stopped clinking. You'd never know she was 78. She still mowed her own lawn, talked back to the news, and used every coupon she clipped whether she needed it or not. She'd lived there since before I was born. Everyone on our street kind of looked after her, until the night the thunder came and she changed. It wasn't a regular storm. You probably heard about it. Late May, freak system over the central Midwest. One night, nothing on radar. The next, 110 miles per hour, straight-line winds and lightning that didn't stop. I mean that literally. Lightning that flashed so fast and constant it felt like strobe lighting for hours. It took out 2 transformers on our block. Half the town lost power. I remember running into the hallway with a flashlight expecting to hear screaming or sirens. But all I heard was Mrs. Winslow, laughing. I peeked out the window and saw her front door wide open. She was standing barefoot in her nightgown, arms raised toward the sky like she was soaking in the static. Her eyes were closed. She didn't move when lightning struck a tree across the street, so close I could feel the heat through the window. She didn't even flinch. The next morning I went to check on her. Her door was closed again. A handwritten note was taped to the glass. "I'm fine. Don't knock. Thank you." Her porch light, somehow still working, was on. And it stayed on for the next 4 days. Weird things started happening after that. She stopped coming outside. No trash put out, no mail collected. But every night around 11 p.m., her living room light would turn off for exactly 3 minutes, then turn back on. I timed it. 3 minutes down to the second. Then the music started. Old-timey stuff. Glenn Miller, slow jazz, radio plays, playing softly from inside her house during the blackout hours. I asked around, no one else noticed. Or they noticed and didn't want to admit it. I finally knocked one afternoon, ignoring the note. No answer. But the porch light flickered once like it heard me. I left a pie on the step. It was gone in an hour. That Friday, the storm came back. Same weird lightning. Same quiet rain that didn't match the violence in the sky. And at exactly 11 p.m., her light turned off. Except this time, it didn't turn back on. I stared at the window for 10 minutes, 15. Then something moved inside. Not a shadow, a shape. Someone taller than her. Thinner. It walked past the window once, then again in the opposite direction. I called her. No answer. I texted her, even though she didn't text. "Are you okay? Is someone inside your house?" No response. I couldn't sleep that night. I watched her house until dawn. No light, no music, just that porch light still glowing. The next morning, I went back. The pie tin was back on the step. Clean. Next to it, another handwritten note. "Thank you. He's teaching me things." I called her niece, a woman named Michelle who lived 2 hours away. She said she hadn't heard from her aunt in weeks. Said that was normal. Said Mrs. Winslow had always been a little tuned to a different channel. But she agreed to drive in the next morning. She never showed. I called her. No answer. That night, the storm returned for a third time. This one didn't even feel natural. No wind, no thunderclap. Just flashes every few seconds. Like signals. Mrs. Winslow's porch light blinked in perfect sync with the lightning. And at exactly 11 p.m., the house went dark. This time, I grabbed my flashlight and crossed the street. The front door was unlocked. Inside smelled like ozone and cinnamon. The music was playing again. Something soft and slow. I stepped inside, calling her name. No answer. The living room was clean, still, nothing out of place. Except the walls, they were covered in mirrors. Dozens of them. Different sizes, mismatched frames, some antique, some plastic. All pointed toward the center of the room, where the recliner sat. Empty. Then I looked in the largest mirror, and she was in it. Smiling. Sitting calmly in the chair. Except she wasn't there in real life. Just in the reflection. Her hands rested on her lap. Her mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear the words. I turned around. The recliner was still empty. But when I looked back at the mirror, she was standing, closer, looking right at me. I ran. Didn't close the door. Didn't stop until I got home and locked everything behind me. The next morning, her house was dark again. The porch light off for the first time in over a week. I haven't seen her since. No one answers the door. No one takes in the mail. And now, the weirdest part. Every time it storms now, no matter what time of day, my lights flicker for exactly 3 minutes. And during that time, my reflection doesn't move with me.